All
Live.
right. Hey, buddy. We're live.
Hey, good to see you, Jeremiah.
Good morning. Good to see you too, John. As always, talk about the weather. The sun finally came out where I'm at. How about you?
It's working its way out. There's still some cloud cover, but
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen within the next 45 minutes to an
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic.
Well, I'm a little further inland from you, but it was foggy. It was socked in this morning,
Yeah.
and that's been continuing lately. I was chatting with someone the other day that had some friends in town. And I
Hmm.
go, oh, that's the kiss of death. If you
Yeah.
visit or have anyone coming to San Diego for like the San Diego sunshine, they're going to get like marine layer for their entire stay.
Right. A heavy mist.
It's, it's, and as soon as they take, or as soon as they go to the airport, they can look out their little tiny window and then just see
Yeah.
the glorious sun shining again.
Right. That's so true. Oh man.
Uh,
I feel like August and September are really, typically we're staring at the sunshine in August and September here at the coast.
yeah, yeah. I mean, what it's the whole May gray, June gloom, all
Yeah.
that stuff. But yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Those are probably my favorite months, even into October. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's
Right.
pretty killer. But yeah, I did like a contrast. I was telling someone the other day, what's May gray? We were over in El Cajon, and you know where that is, like super far inland, and we were
Yeah.
in the eastern part of El Cajon, completely still socked in. So
Wow.
yeah, I guess
That's pretty
you know
rare. Yeah.
it is, but that's San Diego for you. It's not
Mhm.
it's not beautiful every day. So
Right. Right. Just 6
well, let's
days
get
though.
into
Yeah.
let's get into it, man. We got some
Okay.
good articles.
Yeah. We had
Um,
some gems.
yeah,
Yeah.
and in a crazy time where this market is, well, I guess it's always changing, but we're definitely seeing some
Yeah.
things that are really affecting buyers and sellers. And I thought this first article, let's see, what was that of? This was the Market Watch. Headline was, I'm a senior economist for realtor.com. These are 5 things you should know about the housing market.
Right.
And I thought this, here we gotta say his name if we're gonna talk about him. What was it?
George
George,
Ratu.
yeah, George Ratu, a senior economist over there.
Yeah.
Um, I
At Ro
thought he nailed it on these points. We can go through each one,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I thought he absolutely nailed it. Was the first thing he talked about was how mortgage rates will likely continue to rise. You know me, I'm always every Thursday I check Freddie Mac.
Mhm.
Um, it actually came down their reporting through their national survey today, and I think it was also down last Thursday, just a little bit, but still, I mean, we're
Yeah.
you know we're
Slightly.
we're up a couple percent over these over the last quarter, it seems like. And yeah, Freddie Mac's reporting 5.1, but I agree that mortgage rates will continue to rise. And
Mhm.
I thought they should have started rising a year and a half ago. But
Yep.
yeah, I just
Yeah.
hope they don't. I just hope that the extreme incline doesn't continue, and that's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and it seems like that may happen, because of inflation, right? And trying to curb that. So, yeah, I think the prediction in general is that by the end of this year, we'll be looking at rates around 6% for 30-year, which again is not a horrible rate, but so many people are used to rates in the mid twos to 3%, or 3.5%. And I think it's going to be a while before we see that again.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what they were shopping for with that in mind, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the big one right there, is that
Right.
it's changed the way these buyers, and it doesn't matter if they're looking at a $500,000 home or a $2 million home. If they're doing financing, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, these 5 points, right? Obviously, mortgage rates are one of the points that our friend George made. Second point was limited inventory.
Mhm,
So, I think what was mentioned in this article is that the builders are just not keeping up with the demand, right? And we
mhm,
have a growing population, and we have a lot of people that are within that buying range right now, and they would like to purchase a home. We are roughly 6 million homes shy of where ballpark we would need to be to fill that gap. So, and that's across the United States,
yeah,
but that's a lot.
yeah.
That's a lot. And
Well,
it's not
it's a lot. I pulled up the inventory for us here, North
yeah,
County, San Diego, at 39.5. So I mean, we're basically down 40%, right?
yeah,
Um, so that has continued.
right,
You know, shift in rates, continued low inventory.
right. Yeah, exactly. And that all ties into the third point here too, which is that the home prices are likely to keep going up slightly. Some of in some markets they've kind of capped. It's kind of at that point where it's crested. Now it's coming back down slightly. We're seeing some price reductions and things like that. But it really depends on where you're at in the United
Mhm.
States. And I mean, I think we would both agree, Jeremiah, that it's healthy to kind of curb these price points a little bit
Yeah,
because
yeah.
most people just are there's no way they can afford a house, at least, not without the help of mom and dad or an uncle or
Mhm,
something, some
mhm.
inheritance they come into to be able to actually come up with the money to buy a house.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'll take it a step further. In like people talk about prices coming down.
mhm,
I go, well, and again, I know there's going to be a million different markets,
mhm,
but if we just focus on what we're seeing, when I see any price adjustments, it's really not prices coming down. It's just they were asking, 10, 20% more than what the neighbor just sold for.
that's a good point.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, some people can say, yeah, well, it's a price drop. Well, if they priced it a million over and then they dropped it $1 million, they
right.
just came back to what I believe is just the reality for the market. I mean, that's market value. And
Yes.
no, I don't think there's going to be any screaming deals because there's still plenty of buyers out there that are
Mhm.
willing to step in. It's just I don't think sellers are going to get away with just asking for crazy amounts that aren't supported by comparable local sales.
Right, right. Completely agree. So, I mean, I guess to summarize that, and that's the fourth point here, is that the sellers still have the advantage, right?
Mhm,
But they're not getting away with everything now in terms
yeah.
of, having buyers waive all of their contingencies to win out on a deal.
Mhm,
Or, I mean, yes, the prices are high. I don't know if and I don't believe that there's going to be some drop off in price points. Interest rates have come up. And to your point, Jeremiah, I think there's a lot of people around here, in particular, North County, San Diego, that are going, Bob, my neighbor just sold his house for $2 million, and the market's been doing this, right? So maybe we can list our house for 2.3 and see what happens because people
mhm,
are paying $300,000 over where it's listed.
mhm.
That's not there's that logic is flawed.
Yeah, yeah.
So, those are the homes, to your point, that start to come back down to reality and eventually hit that price point that in this example is more around the $2 million mark.
Yeah.
Um, but, yeah, I think part of the challenge is that the market is moving so quickly that from the buyer standpoint, they have to be ready to go like that. They don't have a lot of time to deliberate about whether this is the right house for them or not. And
Mhm,
and so some buyers are making this slap knee decision on purchasing a house and at a aggressive price point to win the deal, and then they have buyer's remorse.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean that is happening.
yeah.
Um,
Well, you're basically talking about number 5, right?
yeah,
I mean, yeah, yeah. It's it's rushing into it. I mean, this goes back to what I think you and I always talk about, John, where a neutral market is not a bad market. It's a
Mm-mm.
market in which um, a seller may not have all the advantage. They still get to choose what they, get to sell their home for. They have that type of control, but that buyers don't have to just buy whatever home they can win.
Right.
They actually can find out, which property is this going to be a good fit for myself, maybe my
Yeah.
family, maybe the location, like they actually get to decide rather than, well, hey, there could be nothing else that comes up. I have to grab this one.
Right.
So I, I'm still having a hard time on how that is a negative thing. Um, to me, it just seems neutral is fair.
Exactly.
And if that's where we're headed, I'm fine with that.
Right. Exactly. And the other thing to keep in mind here is, of course, and maybe this ties into our next topic. But
Yeah,
the
yeah. Let's just jump into it.
Yeah, let's do it. So what is this one? It's stop Googling bubble.
Yeah, yeah. That's what everyone's talking about. This one's out of Inman. Stop
Yeah,
Googling bubble. Here's why the news may be more positive than you think.
right. Right. So in this particular article, they interviewed Leslie Appleton Young, who is retired now, but she was the chief economist for the California Association of Realtors. And then she recently married John, I hope I don't butcher his name, Tucciolo.
There you go.
Um,
You said it perfectly.
who's the former chief economist for the National Association of Realtors and the state of Florida. And so they talked about a lot of different topics.
Mhm.
One of the takeaways, and I've got a lot of notes on this, but one of the takeaways John had mentioned is that there's really two reasons for a quote unquote crash to occur. Reason number one is that credit is very loose, right? Is, like going back to 2006, 2007, um, you could basically say, hey, I make seven, 800, $900,000 a year. This is what I do. I'll just fill this out, blah, 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 sign
Yeah,
here. And then all of a
yeah,
sudden you're approved for a $5 million house,
yeah.
whatever.
The joke was you just needed to have a pulse, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we all saw what happened with that, right? So that is not what is happening right now. Credit is not loose. That's not what I'm seeing, at least. And then his point number two is that the economy, the reason for a crash to occur is in the tank, right? So the economy
Mhm.
stinks. And right now, we're looking at an employment deficit of 2 to 3 million jobs that we don't have the people to fill, or those
Mhm.
people at they're not actively looking for work.
Yeah.
So we're in this position where from that standpoint everything looks quite strong,
Mhm.
and our unemployment rate is right around 3.6%, which essentially means if you want to get a job and to become employed, you can.
Mhm.
We have all these available jobs. So from that standpoint, the economy is strong. Now, there's still a lot of other variables to consider. But John's point was that those two reasons that a crash would normally occur, lose credit and the economy kind of in the tank, that's not happening.
Yeah. Well, it would come and I agree with them. I mean, especially with the credit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're, when that bubble burst, there were, the signs were all over,
Mhm.
that there wasn't stability there. And I also agree that, the strong labor market is something that also is going to support us through any type of challenge that we have in our economy, any challenge that we have, making sure that people are having at least an opportunity. I mean, I think what you were alluding to, John, was, yeah, well, then what type of jobs are available and what do
Mhm.
they pay and
Right.
where are they located? There's tons of different um, logistics that are going to play into that. But big picture, and I think that's what he's talking about. Big picture is quality credit, strong job market. And then I
Yep.
think he even alluded to, I think he also was the one that talked about demand, right?
Yes.
I think he was talking about demand too. It wasn't one of his top
Yeah.
2 points, but, and I mean, when we were talking about that in the previous article, that as long as that demand is there, as long as that low inventory is there, and we have plenty of buyers to come and get it, it's hard to be one of these, doomsayers, just
Right.
saying that everything's going to crumble. I mean, I was even looking at the comments right below this article. I
Yeah.
love I
Yeah.
love to read the banter like back and forth
Right.
with people arguing, but it's I want someone to try to convince me of something I don't believe. Like, that's fine. I
Right.
love to hear that, but I'm searching for something to support, when I see someone type out, yeah, things are going to plummet 20, 30, 40%. And I go, well, oh, anything's possible, but
Mhm.
but where is it going to come from?
Right.
Because where we're at here in this market right now, if my buyer says, "Hey, this is just too crazy," well, then there will be a handful of other buyers. There may not be 50 of them, but there'll be
Right.
plenty of other buyers to come in and take that same deal.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. And they also touched on the ability to work remote.
Mhm,
And so the buyer pool has now expanded exponentially compared to what it was pre-COVID.
mhm,
Specifically for us here in North County, San Diego, where people want to live. So we talk about this all the time, Jeremiah, where we see a lot of people from San Francisco and New York and other major cities that can keep their jobs and their base pay, and they can move here to San Diego, with their families, take advantage of a good school system, of the beaches, the mountains, the deserts. Like, we've got a lot to offer,
mhm.
and the weather. Um, and so that's what they're doing. Now, something else that John brought up that I thought was a good point. He said supply deficits are self-fulfilling. So if the mentality is that, let's say I own a home and I would like to downsize, I don't need a 4,000 square foot house anymore. The kids are out of the nest. It's my wife and I, and we've got a little wiener dog, and that's all we've
Mhm.
got, right? Well, I want to move. I don't want to take care of this huge property, but where do I go? And so there's a lot of people that are in this position that we talk to on a daily basis that would love to sell their homes, but they're uneasy
Mhm.
to sell because they don't know where they're going to move. And many of them feel like they can't afford to move.
Yeah, oh,
So,
100%. Oh, and the rates have gone up.
right.
So if there was a loan involved, that's even more hesitation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's inventory out there, but a lot of it just isn't. It's not on the market. There's
Mhm.
people that are in that headspace that do want to move, but they are not moving because they really feel like they can't afford to move it. To your point, if there's a loan involved, now the rates have gone up even higher, and they are due to go up throughout the
Yeah,
course of this year.
yeah,
So I thought that was a really good point. And, one of the last pieces that Leslie brought up, what do they call it? The dark underbelly of today's
yeah.
market,
Mhm,
right? And essentially, what this is through home ownership, being able to generate wealth that is intergenerational.
mhm,
So, our parents, our grandparents, they purchased a house so that they could not only have a roof over their head and security, but also it represented their largest investment. And oftentimes that was passed on to the kids. And so now it's getting harder and harder for first time home buyers in particular to purchase property because appreciation has gone up considerably. It just
mhm.
these properties just, I mean, what has it been over the last 2 years, Jeremiah, here in North County, San Diego?
Yeah. No,
It's
I mean,
wild.
it's yeah, no, it's absolutely been bonkers. So,
Yeah. So
and we've seen it where we've had some of our clients, John, you've told me about some examples where, they wanted to be near the beach, they wanted to be near Encinitas. And then reality kicks in, and we have those same clients buying in San Marcos, Escondido, just heading a little further inland.
That's right. Yeah. So, and that's what happens, right? Is it, you get pushed out further and further from, in our case, it's the ocean. So
Yeah.
it starts there and then it works its way inland. But truly the rate of appreciation has so far outpaced what people make, their
Yeah.
wages, and same with inflation.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the reason why you and I see people that are, investors, that if they have the means to do it, many of them are buying real estate,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's a wonderful hedge against inflation.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
rise with the
Absolutely.
tide.
It seems to be one of the few things that's still stable.
Yeah,
Not that it's 100% guarded by everything, but
right.
it sure seems to be the most stable thing right now.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to point out, and I'm sorry guys, I don't know which one of them mentioned it, and I think we've kind of been talking about it, is that they said that there's no national housing market. There
Yeah.
are hundreds of thousands of housing markets. And I
Right.
think that's also what we're seeing. I mean, we've talked about national news, national data, but then we've come in and said, okay, but this is what we're seeing in North County, San
Mhm.
Diego. So, I mean, even getting it smaller. And then as we discuss, John, with our clients, there's a difference between being in this neighborhood of North County and being
Yeah.
in this neighborhood of North
Right.
County. So there's so many sub markets going on that
Yeah.
it's to me it's just kind of wild, and it's hard to make generalizations. You want to inform people of what's going on. We want to try to get the best data we can, but
Right.
even that can vary,
Mhm.
and so um I completely agreed with that comment, and I think that that's underlooked a little bit and undervalued by a lot of people, because they argue the whole national data.
Right.
And I know people that they're not in that scenario at all. They can sell their house in a second.
Right.
Um, but also, we know other neighborhoods that are very challenging right now, or are becoming more challenging. So it's
Right.
just going to be. I think it's a good point, and I think it's something good to keep in mind. Um, I keep on thinking about two of my clients right now that are
Mhm.
moving out of state, and it's just night and day markets going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I had a conversation the other day with a guy I used to work with. He's in the tech space. And he said that, yeah, they've got a lot of, they have money in the bank. And he said he would love to move and upgrade. But again, the fact that this particular neighborhood he wanted to be in as of a couple years ago was like, $1.5 million was your average house there, and now it's pushing 3. And he's like, I'm not doing that. So now what he's looking at is he's looking at Idlewild as a vacation property for
mhm,
himself. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother topic of what's going to happen to that industry, and I think how I feel about that, John. It's like the rents. It doesn't matter if it's a short-term rental like an Airbnb, or if it's a full-blown annual rental. Boy,
Exactly.
I still I still haven't seen any data showing that rents are coming down.
No, if anything, definitely seeing that it's continuing to go up.
Yeah,
And it's super unfortunate for folks in that situation. You know,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. Um, so so what's our third point here? What is this?
Third one, we're actually dipping into new home construction,
That's right. Oh, and this,
which
yeah.
this to me, this is really interesting because, well, here I'll do the quick intro. CNNBC, the headline is sales of newly built homes tumbles over 16% in April while prices soar. Again, national, right? So, you know, I I don't
Right.
see. I don't see that happening as much here, but I know it's, when I'm talking new home sales, that's nothing I specialize in.
Mhm.
And I think I think
Yeah.
in general here in San Diego, there's so little new construction compared to other places in the country, like in Dallas, Texas, and just
Right.
areas where there's more room, there's more real estate to actually build on.
That's right.
But
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that they mentioned this in the article that we've got a combination of rising interest rates. We've got relatively high inflation at the moment, and we've also got rising costs to build.
mhm,
So all of that ultimately gets passed on to the consumer, and the consumer, if they're cognizant of that, that's great, but they need to know that that property is likely going to be more than what was initially quoted to them in many
mhm,
cases.
mhm.
So that's something that they really need to consider. And it's been a little while since I've sold a new build. I don't know about you, Jeremiah, but it's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been long enough. I mean, probably been over a half a year, and I know some people would be like, "Well, Jeremiah, that's not too long." Well, in this market, a lot can change in 6 months,
Yeah, a lot
and
can change in 6 months. That's right. Yeah.
and from what I've seen, um, I don't know. Yeah, again, this goes back to me just not knowing enough about new construction because I don't specialize in it. I was even surprised when I did help out a handful of folks in 2000, even in 2021, and it was odd. I would take them in. The new home sales rep would say like, here, we're waiting list,
Right.
and it's X number of hundreds of people on the waiting list. And then I told my clients, well, get in on the waiting list. Hey, you just put in your name everywhere we can.
Right.
I kid you not, even and it happened both in 2000 and 2021. They would get a call like a week later saying, "Hey,
Mhm.
your name came up," and I don't know what I didn't know what was going on then. I don't know what's going on now, but there was just something funky. Like there was
Yeah.
something, um, whether it was a bunch of buyers just changing their minds or they were inflating the concept of how many people were on the list.
Uh-huh.
Um, I know that what you alluded to, John, about how prices were changing. So, they'd be quoted a certain price, and then things would happen, it would get delayed, and they were
Yeah.
almost trying to get buyers to cancel.
Right.
So, they could basically upcharge the next buyer for the same property. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to go into,
Yeah. I've
I mean,
Yeah.
like thinking the worst about some of these situations with new construction, but I don't know. I just kind of find it fascinating. And then even this article was talking about an uptick in cancellation rates,
Mhm.
and yeah, I mean, yes, it makes complete sense. You have, especially like a first-time home buyer, they know the rate that they're going to buy at,
Right.
and then they're being told, just like ordering a Tesla online, well, you just have to wait a year for your car to be delivered to you, or you just have to
Right.
wait 6 months for your house to be done, and then they can't even lock in their interest rate.
Right.
And then when finally they get there, there may be some unforeseen costs, or now maybe it's just the mortgage that has, gone up 40%.
Right.
So, or they're just kind of panicking a little bit because they don't know what's happening with the market, and they don't want to buy the most expensive home in the whole neighborhood. So,
Exactly. And then also people's situations change in
sure.
6 months,
Yeah, sure, sure.
and maybe somebody loses a job, or I don't know. It could be so many things.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've heard that as well from some close colleagues actually, where builders have quoted a specific date where the property is going to be finished, and then that date comes and goes, and then they reset it out for another 3 months, 2 months, 3 months,
Yeah.
and it's like, my goodness, it's 9 months later, this project is done. And in some cases, I've known folks that have bought the new build, they've secured a certain price point,
Mhm.
and then all of this time goes by, and when the property is finally done, that buyer just puts it on the market.
Yeah.
Okay. I just, it was 9 months delayed, but in this crazy market, right at the
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
and then they're making, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars for doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I mean, anything can happen, but
Yeah.
this does make sense to me. How, in certain circumstances, the new home sales have dropped off.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can see both sides
Hmm.
of the new construction and resale. I mean, if you have an opportunity, just like your example, if you have an opportunity to secure something and
Right.
basically what, pay 5 grand, 10 grand as just
Right.
an earnest money deposit,
Yeah.
and then there are additional phases of homes being built, or just time in itself,
Right.
which just it helped so many folks gain equity with just that
Right.
time. Then if you have an opportunity to capitalize that and then turn around and then sell a home, I think it's business. It's
Right.
that's
Right.
what we talk about: investing in your future, diversifying in real estate. I mean, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
What drives me nuts, and I'm not even bothered that maybe a new construction company. I mean, these are these are companies that are traded, traded on Wall Street.
Yeah.
So they're there for their shareholders. They're there to make money. What kind of gets me is how these are still homes that people need to have a roof over their head.
Right.
And I understand that there are sometimes delays, and now we've had, the whole supply chain that is delaying certain construction. But I had in 2021, I had clients that they have their
Hmm.
lease is up, they're going to get slammed with a massive increase because we know the rents have gone up,
Yeah.
to be able to stay in their home if they have an opportunity to stay in their home while they're getting these delays on the new construction.
Right.
And to me, that's where, there's pros and cons to it. And I would say just a massive con has just been, how do these people maintain shelter, having a
Yeah.
roof over their head? I mean, you and I would never get away with this in the resale, just going, hey, by the
Right.
way, my seller just needs 4 more months.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to swing both ways. I don't know.
No.
It's just, I think it's um well, I mean that's what you get for new construction. And then when it works out great, hey, it works fantastic and people get that bonus equity.
Right. Right. Yeah. So the majority of the new builds around here, then, well, there aren't really too many new builds around us, but it's, to your point, going to be driven inland. So we're looking at, Temecula has been exploding over the last decade. Menifee. I mean, you just go down the 15 basically, and
Mhm,
you're going to see more and more housing developments out there.
mhm,
Um, and that's, to a certain extent, if you're looking for maybe a larger home with all the bells and whistles, yes, it's going to be a lot less expensive in those locations. And if you
mhm.
can work from your house, then maybe that makes sense. Again, if you have children and it's a good school system, okay, yeah. But yeah, I mean, location is still number one,
Yeah,
and it always will be for
yeah,
real estate. And then the secret ingredient is time.
yeah, yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
It's it's
Well,
watching.
that's what my mom said about cooking as well.
Yes,
It's
exactly right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, really, these all tie in together, and that's where I would just say, um, if you need to sell, if selling is something that you are committed to doing, I think now is still a fantastic time to
yeah,
sell. You just have to make sure that you're not being too greedy, because that asking price, that you
Yeah.
know that is the price that's either going to determine if anyone's showing up and knocking at your door,
Yeah.
or are you generating a lot of excitement from a lot of buyers.
Right.
Uh, and vice versa, if you're a buyer right now, I think you have an opportunity to take a deep breath. I don't think rates are going to continue to skyrocket.
Yeah.
No, it is like, it's like you really have to have that team approach of just, hey, we're all going to take a deep breath. I think we're going to see more inventory come on. I don't foresee prices to continue to be outrageous,
Right.
and just be patient, and
Yeah.
just waiting for the right one.
Right.
So
And knowing that when that right one presents itself, that you are in a position to truly make the strongest offer that you can, that you feel
yeah,
comfortable with on
yeah,
that
yeah,
house.
yeah.
Because so often we've seen it where it's like you only get one shot to write that first offer, right? Or
Hmm.
that offer on that house.
Hmm.
You may not get a counter offer. You may
Yeah,
not get another chance. So
yeah,
make sure that you craft that in a way that it's, most attractive to the
yeah.
seller. Yeah.
And again, this goes back to just long-term investments. I have I have a different view on my investors, or anyone that's just trying to flip something right now, right? I
Right.
mean, it's
Right.
it's we're talking about buying, long-term rentals, or long-term areas that you're going to stay in,
Yeah.
um, and scrutinizing and analyzing those sub markets and those sub neighborhoods.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's it's not simple, but you gotta look at the data. So,
Exactly right. Yeah. And quite frankly, work with someone that knows those areas really well,
yeah.
right? So and can give you seasoned advice on, are you moving there yourselves with your family, or is this an
Hmm.
investment, and how long are you holding it for? All sorts of things. And then, like you said, Jeremiah, look at that data, and see
Hmm.
if that matches up with what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
hey, everything seems to be constantly changing so much. We'll see where
Yeah.
we're at next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah. But these are
Yeah,
great topics.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And they all really tie in together. So,
Right.
you guys, let us know if you have any questions. Real quick, I'm going to put up all the links in here. I think I forgot to do that last time. Let me do that real fast, just so if anyone wants to click on any of these articles. I don't think I can do it after the fact.
Mm.
And this one, and we got Memorial Day coming up.
We do.
I, you know, I hope it's not going to be one of those Memorial Days where you go to the beach and it's overcast. You're like, oh, it'll burn off. Don't worry. And then you know what I'm talking about. And then
Yeah.
you get in the water with your kids, and then you're like, boy, I'm glad I wore a wetsuit because it's chilly down here and
Right.
it's still overcast. And then my wife Nicole, she'll be like, well, we'll just stay until the afternoon. Maybe we'll catch a sunset. And then
Right.
you end up leaving there around 5 o'clock, and you never saw the sun.
Right. True. I
Oh,
think there will be a
and you
lot
know
of
what?
beach.
You never saw the sun, and if you're like me with my skin, you come home and you still got burned.
Yeah,
Like, it's uh,
I hear you.
brutal. All right, my friend. Good work as always.
Yes, likewise.
We will do this again next week.
All right, Jeremiah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Talk soon, man. Have a great day.
Bye.